Hi students, welcome to session 1 of wastewater management. Students, in today's session we will study about the introduction to wastewater management. So students, let us start with today's interesting session and let us learn about wastewater management. Now, before beginning with this interesting topic, I would like to share something. Students, you may be surprised to know that the treatment of wastewater is relatively modern practice. So students, although sewers to remove foul-smelling water were common in ancient Rome, it was not until the 19th century that large cities began to understand the necessity of reducing the amount of pollutants in the used water they were discharging to the environment. So despite large supplies of fresh water and the natural ability of surface waters to cleanse themselves over time, populations had become so concentrated by 1850 that outbreaks of life-threatening diseases became a commonplace. And these outbreaks were traced to pathogenic bacteria in the polluted water. So this was definitely a very critical situation. So what happens in a wastewater treatment plant is essentially the same as what occurs naturally in an ocean, lake, river, or streams. The function or the role of wastewater treatment plant is to speed up this natural cleansing process, and the practice of wastewater collection and treatment has been developed and perfected using some of the most technically sound biological, physical, chemical, and mechanical techniques which are now available. So as a result, public health and water quality are protected better today than even before. So students, you know that outside of the laboratory there is no such thing as pure water. Even rainwater, for example, it takes on the gases, solid particles and other impurities as it falls through the air to the earth. This water strikes the ground and flows across through the surface of the earth as would be expected. It takes on the characteristic of the materials it has encountered. So students, for example, minerals are dissolved and they contribute to the dissolved salts that are normally found in waters, and at the same time, organic matter from decomposed vegetation, it goes off from the soil and it dissolves, or it is carried along with the water. Thus, water has many natural impurities, and generally these impurities do not detract from the utilization of the water, for example, drinking, washing, etc. So our main concern with the water that has been used by man is that while such waters have in the past been commonly referred to as sewage, means full of impurities, but now over the more recent years they have come to be called as waste waters. So basically, the term wastewater is a broad descriptive term. Generally, it includes liquids and waterborne solids from domestic, industrial, or commercial uses, as well as other water that has been used or fouled in human beings' activities, whose quality has been degraded and which are discharged to a sewage system. So this term sewage has been used for many years, and generally it refers to the water containing only sanitary wastes. However, sewage technically denotes any wastewaters which pass through a sewer. So two general categories of wastewaters, not entirely separable, are recognized as domestic wastewaters and industrial wastewaters. So we will study about it in detail in the coming sessions. So students, I hope you got the introduction of wastewater management. You understood about why we are actually discussing about this topic. So students, as we have learned in the previous chapter that water is a precious resource, right? So students, it is a precious resource and we use water for various activities. But most of these activities make the water dirty after use, and that is why this dirty water is called wastewater. So students, with all the waste in it, water will be unfit for animal and plant life to survive. So students, here you can see a very clear picture of the wastes which is present in the water. So students, what happens that these domestic wastewaters originate principally from domestic household activities, but it usually includes water which is discharged from the commercial and the industrialized areas, such buildings where factories are located and institutions, as well as the groundwater. So surface and storm water may also be present in this wastewater which we are seeing here, right? And so domestic wastewaters are usually of predictable quantity and quality. Industrial wastewater, on the other hand, originate from manufacturing processes, and they are usually of more variable character and they are often more difficult to treat than the domestic wastes. So while domestic waste waters can be dealt with in general terms with respect to the character and treatment, industrial wastewaters must be examined on an industry by industry thesis or industry by industry basis. So students, generally we deal primarily with the domestic wastewaters as well as with the industrial wastewaters. Now you see, students, water is a primary resource for every community, whether it be for household, cleaning, sanitation, then economical use or recreational purposes. Since water is such a vital resource for the survival of both plants and animals, it is our responsibility to manage this resource, not only as a social, industrial and commercial goal, but also for the sustainable benefit of all present and future living matter. So in order to obtain maximum utilization of the available water resources, used water or wastewater must be returned to its original condition or standard. So students, here we have to keep in mind that the quality of wastewater must be of such a standard so as not to negatively affect the quality of the water into which it is returned, or the body of the water into which it is returned. So the three main components that must be removed from wastewater are carbon, nitrogen and phosphorus. I would like to write for you, that's carbon, nitrogen and phosphorus. So students, these are the main ones which need to be removed. There are other impurities too, other than these three, right? So basically, the main aim of wastewater treatment, why we are studying about this chapter, wastewater management, the main aim of this wastewater treatment management is to safeguard the public health, to protect the water environment, to produce useful byproducts at an industrial level, at a commercial level, and to comply with legal requirements. So students, keep in mind that when life forms in these water bodies die, the bacteria present in the dirty water start decomposing them, and as a result the water begins to sink. Hence it becomes essential to have a proper mechanism for wastewater disposal. So in this session, in this lesson, actually, we will study about how wastewater is generated and how it can be treated. But before switching on to those topics, we need to study that which are the actual sources of wastewater and how we can eradicate it. and how we can treat it, right? So let us study about the sources of wastewater. Yes, students, sources of wastewater. Now, students, in today's modern society, we have numerous uses of water, both around the home as well as in commercial or industrial operations. So this water becomes wastewater once it has been used, whether for washing dishes in a restaurant or flushing a toilet or as a part of manufacturing process in industries. Even rainfall and runoff from the streets and parking lots is also wastewater. So these sources combine to produce almost 1 billion liters of wastewater on an average day. How stunning it is, right? So wastewater is generated as a result of numerous human activities. So obviously the sources would be one of these, which are actually the man-made water problems, right? So wastewater can be defined as the flow of used water discharged from homes, from industries, commercial activities, and institutions. Institutions means such type of factories and industries which is directed to treatment of plants by a carefully designed and engineered network of pipes. So this wastewater is further categorized and defined according to the sources of origin. The term domestic wastewater refers to the flows which are discharged principally from residential areas, residential sources generated by such activities like food preparation, then laundry, cleaning, and personal hygiene. And industrial or commercial wastewater is the flow which is generated and discharged from manufacturing and commercial activities such as printing, food and beverage processing and production, etc. So even the institutional wastewater characterizes the wastewater which is generated by large institutions such as factories, such as hospitals, and typically 200 to 500 liters of wastewater are generated for every person connected to the system each day. The amount of flow handled by a treatment plant varies with the time of day and with the season of the year. So basically, this is all generated as a result of numerous human activities. As you can see here, a very clear picture of the man-made water problems, and there are many such chemicals by which water is polluted. So we can say hence these are the sources of waste water. There are some sources of wastewater and they all combine to generate such type of gases, like from the fertilizers, lawn and garden chemicals, herbicides, nitrates, fertilizers, carbon monoxide, insecticides, oil and gas leaks and spills, asbestos, smoke and exhausts, then sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, acid rain, pesticides, mercury, arsenic, solvents, taste and odor, phosphates, many unknown chemical contaminants, then carbon tetrachloride, chlorine, urban waste. So these are all the human activities because of which water problems arise, right? And water gets polluted. So students, basically from agriculture, wastewater generated from farms contains harmful pesticides, biocides, animal waste, etc. So these are all which are generating or which are adding to the wastewater, pollution to the wastewater. Then construction of buildings, that is large amount of wastewater is generated from construction of buildings too, right? Even from the industries, as we discussed, that wastewater generated from the paint and dye industries contain harmful chemicals such as lead, chromium, etc. So such discharge is also called as industrial effluents. So students, wastewater from the industrial and commercial operations, commercial places, areas, place unique demand on the sewerage system because they contain different contaminants, and through some program, many of the countries, they deal with such sewage system with which wastewater production to helps them to save money and reduce the contaminants, or they reduce the use of contaminants in the environment. So basically, wastewater produced by industry is controlled through waste discharge, which is permitted by the government, that requires each company's wastewater to fall within specialized guidelines of volume and the types of contaminants contained. Right? Even by the domestic activities, the wastewater generated from our houses contains detergents, food waste, human feces, plastics, paper, metal, objects, etc. So whether it's flushing the toilet, washing the clothes, having a shower, or watering our lawn, we actually use a significant amount of water in our households each day, isn't it? Yes. So on an average, we actually send approximately 500 liters of wastewater, or we use approximately 500 liters of water, which is used and which is then said to be a wastewater. So we use this much, and so 500 liters of wastewater per person to our regional wastewater treatment plants are generated every day. Right? So this we should keep in mind. Even the commercial users are there. There are some commercial and institutional places by which, such as restaurants, dry cleaners, photo filming, then photo filming facilities, then dental offices produce wastewater that can have a significant effect on the sewerage system. And the wastewater treatment process, if it is not handled properly, then many of these industries are governed by a code of practice, a set of liquid waste, which measures that apply to an entire sector of commercial activity. So you see that domestic or wastewaters consist primarily of liquid discharges resulting from sanitary facilities like bathing, laundering, then some other activities, as well as from other sources. And the principal sources of domestic and commercial wastewater are the human wastes, then household wastes, then storm flows or the street washings, then groundwater infiltration, industrial waste. So basically, human wastes consist of the body discharges, mostly feces and urine, which become a part of the wastewater through toilet flushing. And these wastes have obvious public health implications and are of the importance since they contain such organisms which produce diseases in human beings. So the safe and effective treatment of sanitary waste constitutes a major objective in wastewater disposal. Even the household wastes are derived from home laundry operations, bathing, kitchen wastes, from washing and cooking, food and dishwashing. Most of these wastewaters contain synthetic detergents. So kitchen waste also consist of food residues as well as the greases. So household waste may also contribute significantly to the wastewater burden, and the home garbage grinding units which are used. Even the storm flows from rains, storms and street washings contain grit, sand, leaves and other debris in the drained surfaces. So in some communities, these flows are collected separately for disposal and they do not become a part of the community wastewater. But storm flow volume varies with the intensity of rainfall, its topography, its pavements and roof areas, and combined wastewaters area. They are the mixture of domestic or sanitary wastewater, and these are collected in the same sewers. Even the sewers, the collecting devices for the wastewaters are buried in the ground, and in some instances they may be below groundwater levels, particularly when such levels are high because of excessive seasonal rainfall. Then what happens? That all these sewers are not tight, and the groundwater at times seeps or enters the sewers by infiltration. So such collecting sewers are usually not under pressure, and flow is by gravity only, and so such infiltration is becoming very crucial subject nowadays. So this should always be kept in mind, that this groundwater is also influenced by the soil composition, the type of sewer construction, groundwater conditions, and rainfall and other weather conditions too. Besides this, by mining also wastewater is generated as a result of mining operations. There are, as we discussed, that there are industrial wastewaters, and they are the discharges of the industrial plants and manufacturing processes. So basically, industrial wastewaters can represent collectively an important part of the community wastewaters, and they must be considered for such successful wastewater treatment plant operation. In some locations, industrial wastewater discharges are collected together with other community wastewaters, and then they are mixed wastes and they are treated together. So this is one thing which should be kept in mind, and how we can treat this wastewater. Other than this, as we discussed, that even from the hospitals, hotels, offices, etc., wastewater from these places also contains disease-causing germs, so it needs to be disposed and treated very wisely. So students, there are typical industries too which produce significant volumes of wastewaters, which include fiber plants, paper, steel mills, refining and petrochemical operations, then fertilizer plants. So there are many such industrial plants whose discharges may consist of very strong organic wastewaters with a high oxygen demand that contain undesirable chemicals which can damage sewers and other structures too. So a very fine and highly designed sewer system should be built for such industrial plants. So students, all the wastewater that is released from various sources which we saw forms the sewage, which contains suspended impurities, and these impurities are called contaminants. So students, these contaminants, if not removed or if they are not treated on time, then definitely it will pollute water, and definitely it will not be usable anywhere. So we should keep this in mind. So that was all about the sources of wastewater, and now we will switch on to the other topic which is also very important from the wastewater management point of view, and that is eutrophication. So let us study about it. Yes students, eutrophication. Students, eutrophication is when the environment becomes enriched with nutrients, and this can be a problem in marine habitats such as lakes, as it causes algal blooms. What it causes? Yes, it causes algal blooms. So students, even the fertilizers are often used in farming. As we know very well. Sometimes these fertilizers run off in nearby water, causing an increase in the nutrient levels. And this causes many microorganisms to grow and reproduce more rapidly, resulting in algal blooms. So students, an excessive growth or blooms of algae in lakes which are rich in nutrients such as phosphates is called eutrophication. What is eutrophication? Yes, it is an excessive growth or blooms of algae in lakes which is rich in nutrients such as phosphates is called eutrophication. So normally it takes thousands of years to progress, but human activities have enhanced this process greatly. How? Yes, like the bloom of algae, it disrupts normal ecosystem functioning and causes many problems. So the algae may use up all the oxygen in the water. How? Let us see. Yes, here you can see the picture which shows that it is full of the algae, right? So this is one such picture which is depicting the eutrophication. So how is it possible? It is basically the algae may use up all the oxygen in the water and leaving none for other marine life, and this results in the death of many aquatic organisms such as fish, which need the oxygen in the water, dissolved oxygen in the water to survive. So the bloom of algae may also block sunlight from photosynthetic marine plants under the water surface, and some algae even produce toxins that are harmful to higher forms of life, and this can cause problems and many problems along the food chain, and it can affect any animal that feeds on them. So what have human beings done? That humans add excessive amounts of plant nutrients, which is primarily phosphorus, nitrogen and carbon, to streams and lakes in various ways, and after that what do? Yes, the runoff from the agricultural fields and urban lawns and untreated domestic sewage are discharged into lakes, which are the major sources of these nutrients. So what happens is that these algal blooms, they lead to oxygen depletion, right? And as a result of which many fish, birds and other animals die. Thus the water begins to stink. And that is why we can say that this is actually the process of eutrophication, right? So it also needs to be treated. We are discussing about this topic because we can come to know that an excessive growth of blooms of algae in lakes is not good for the marine habitats, and we need to treat it, or we need to take some steps for this. So this we should keep in mind. So that was all about the process of eutrophication, right? And now we will discuss one of the case study, which is the Gulf War oil spill. So let us discuss about it. Yes, Gulf War oil spill. Now students, oil spill is the intentional or unintentional release of oil into the natural environment, especially in rivers and oceans, as a result of human activity. So here you can see one of the case of the Gulf War oil spill. Here you can see some of the white marks and some of these brownish and black marks. Now this was happened because the Gulf War oil spill was one of the worst oil spills in the history, resulting from the actions taken during the Gulf War in 1991. When it happened in 1991. Right? So it actually caused considerable damage to the marine life in the Persian Gulf. And that is why its case study named as Gulf War oil spill. So what can be done to prevent oil spills, or what are the remedial measures that need to be taken after an oil spill? That we will study about the treatment. We will study about this treatment of wastewater or domestic wastewater and this commercial wastewater in our next session. All right. So this was just to make you aware that eutrophication or case studies like this had happened, and so we should be now seriously taking this issue to a higher level, and we should think about it to treat it. All right, students. So I hope you are clear with the session 1. We are through with the session 1, and I hope you liked today's session. So we will meet in the next session. Till then, keep learning, keep enjoying, and have a good time.